Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. So in this video we are first going to organize our code a little bit better because there are some things we can use dependency injection for and we are currently not using dependency injection for that. And I want to change that in this video. And we're also going to take care of our notification so that we properly update our notification when we are running and yeah, just display the current tracking time in the notification. Alright, so first of all, in our tracking service class, if we scroll down here to our start foreground service function, this one, here you can see that we have that notification builder. And that is something we can really use dependency injection for because we don't need any information of this class for that notification builder. Well, only the context, but for that we can just use the application context as well. And that's just boilerplate code inside of this tracking service class that we don't want to have. And also this get main activity pending intent function could also be injected. So we can create our very own service module. So on the one hand, we will just inject this notification builder here. Then we're going to inject that main activity pending intent. And we are also going to inject this fused location provider client because that also only relies on the context for which we can choose the application context. So let's actually go inside of our DI package here, create a new Kotlin file or class, which I'm going to call service module. Select object here. So that will be the module that holds all dependencies for our tracking service, and that will also be scoped to the lifetime of our tracking service. So the dependencies inside of the service module will only live as long as our tracking service does and not as long as the whole application does. So first of all, we need to annotate this with add module, and also we want to install this module in the app module. We chose the application component because that or the dependencies inside of this app module are singletons. But as I said, in our service module, our dependencies are not singletons because they only live as long as our service does and not as long as our application does. And because of that, we don't install this in the application component. Instead, we're going to choose the service component, class. So first of all, we will have a provides function for our fused location provider client, for our location tracking object basically. That will be a function provide fused location provider client, and that function will take our application context for which we will need that annotation application context. I'm going to call that app, which is a context, and that will just return a new fused location provider client for which we will pass the app as a context. And if you've listened carefully in my Dagger Hill setup tutorial, then you know that this install in annotation is used to declare how long the dependencies inside of this service module will live, but the scope annotations like that singleton annotation inside of our app module will determine how many instances of our dependencies here will live. So if we annotate this with that singleton, then only a single instance of this running database will exist, even if we request this several times. Then each request will get the same instance. And the same counts for a service module, but here we don't have the singleton annotation. Instead, we have a very own annotation for our service, for services, and that is at service scoped. So that means for the lifetime of our service, there's only going to be one instance of that fused location provider client. And because we want that, of course, we only want a single instance, not multiple instances, we annotate all those functions in this class with add service scope. And the same counts, by the way, for activities. So if you have an activity module with dependencies that only live for the lifetime of an activity, then you install this in the activity component and you annotate those functions with activity scope instead. So each module basically has its own scope in Dagger Hill. The next provides function in this service module will be for our pending intent. Let's go inside of our tracking service, scroll down until we hit the function that get main activity pending intent function. Let's copy the result of that out, go inside of our service module and create a function provide main activity pending intent, which will take the application context again. And we're going to set that equal to what we just copied. Then we can swap out that this with app, with our application context, and this also here. And of course, don't forget the annotations of this function. First of all, service scoped and provides. And as a last function inside of this service module, we will provide our notification builder. So let's jump back to our tracking service and copy that block out. Go back to our service module. I'll make a little space here. And here I will create a function, provide, and I'll call it base notification builder. And why I call it like that, you will see later in this tutorial when we update the notification. This function will take the application context again, and it will also take our pending intent. And because we provided our pending intent inside of this function, Dagger knows how to create that, and then it will automatically pass that behind the scenes as a parameter here to create our base notification builder. Then we're going to set the result of that function to what we just copied. We change the context here to app, and our pending intent from that function call to our pending intent. And don't forget the annotations again. This is at service scoped again and at provides. And then we can go back to our tracking service and inject everything we just provided. Scroll up. First of all, for our fused location provider client, just add inject. And also don't forget the add Android entry point annotation, because we're inside of an Android component here with a service. We need that annotation to properly inject stuff into this class. Then we're going to have our late init var base notification builder, which is of type notification compat. Now I have it. Dot builder. Add inject above that, and scroll down. We can remove the stuff we have down here because we don't need that notification builder anymore. Instead, we can pass our base notification builder here, and we can also remove that get main activity pending intent function because we inject that into our base notification builder, so that is already contained in that. All right. Now we have to think about how we can update our notification with the current time, and we also want to add some action buttons to our notification to be able to pause and resume the service from our notification. And if you don't know how to update a notification, to do that we just need to post a new notification with the same ID. And that's why I created that base notification builder, which will hold the configuration of every of our notifications, but I will also create a late init var current notification, which will have a different configuration than our base notification builder, just a slightly different configuration, because we're going to need to change the text of that notification builder for each second, and we are also going to add those two action buttons. So we have our current notification builder, which is also of type notification compat.builder. And initially, we're just going to assign to our current notification builder the value of our base notification builder. Because we just start with the base notification, and when some time passes, then we're going to change the text of our current notification builder and show that notification instead. And for that, I'm going to create a function. Let's create it right here. Private function update notification tracking state, which takes our current is tracking state as a boolean, as a parameter I mean. And inside of this function we are going to update the current notification and show it in the end. So first of all, we need to specify our action text. So the text for the action of the notification, which is either pause or resume. So we have a val notification action text, which is if we're currently tracking, then it's pause, because if we are tracking, we want to be able to pause the service. And if we're not currently tracking, that means we are inside of the pause state, then the text should be resume. And then we also need a pending intent that we attach to those actions, so we can basically tell our servers what should happen if we click on that action. And for that, we need a pending intent, which will be our pending intent, and Also, if we are currently tracking, that is a different intent than if we're not currently tracking, because if we are tracking, we want to pause the service when we click on that action, and if we're not tracking, then we want to resume the service. So if we're currently tracking, we want to create a pause intent, which is just an intent that we send to our service with the action that it should pause. That's going to be a new intent, for which we will pass this as a context and our tracking service ;class.java, because we want to send that action to our tracking service. We're going to call apply on that and set its action to action pause service. And then we can construct the pending intent out of that. So pending intent dot get service this time, not get activity. Here we passed the context again. So this one as a request code, our pause intent, and also flag update current, which we also had before. So we have that if statement here, and if we're currently tracking, then it will return the last line, so our pending intent, and assign it to that pending intent. In case we are not currently tracking, so in the else case, we have our resume intent instead, which is also just an intent with this as a context, our tracking service ;class.java, call apply on it, and just the action of that intent will differ now because we're going to set it to action start or resume service. And then also return a pending intent dot get service. This again, then we need to pass the request code, which is 2 in this case because we already have 1 and 0. We pass our resume intent and flag update current. Next, we need to get a reference to the notification manager so we can display a new notification, the updated one. That is val notification manager, and set it to get system service and pass our notification service. And we also have to cast that as a notification manager. All right. And the next step now looks a little bit strange, but there's no other way I found that achieves the same that I want to achieve here. And I want to achieve that we basically swap out the action when we click on it. Because we are using that current notification, which is made out of that base notification builder, we will also, with each notification update, with each second that passes, we will attach an action to that. And if we don't remove the old action, then after some time we will have the whole row basically filled with actions, and we don't want that because we only want to display a single action which either shows pause or resume. And for that we somehow need to remove all actions before we actually update that notification, and afterwards we're going to add the new action. So the way to achieve that, the way I found on Stack Overflow, is just to write current notification builder.java class.get declared field. We want to get the field actions, which just seems to be an internal member variable of that notification. And then we're going to call apply on that, set is accessible to true, so just that we are allowed to modify that. And then we're going to set that value, so that action value, to an empty list, because that is basically a list of actions. And we want to set it to an empty list, so we clear it, and we do that by writing set pass our current notification builder, and then we pass an empty array list. An array list of type notification compat.action, and just leave it empty. And that is basically the way to remove all actions before we update that notification with the new action. So we can finally use our current notification builder, set it to base notification builder, and we are going to add an action to that base notification builder. And that will be, first of all, an icon for that action, for which I have no clue where that icon displays, because for me it never displayed. Maybe it only displays on some devices, but anyways, let's choose an icon for that. r.drawable.ic pause black, I called it. We're going to choose the text notification action text, and we're going to assign our pending intent to that. And then we can just use our notification manager .notify. So we just show that new notification with the same notification ID and with a new notification content. So our current notification builder .build. So that was the more difficult part of updating the notification. Now comes the easier part, to update the current time on our notification, for which we will go inside of our start foreground service function, because after we start that foreground service, we are going to use our live data time run in seconds and observe on that. Observe this one, just pass this as a lifecycle owner and an observer block. And in here, we are just going to create our notification, which will set to current notification builder. We're going to set the content text of that notification builder to the new text. So just the text of that notification that will display the current time run. And for that, we're going to use our tracking utility .get formatted stopwatch time. And here we need to pass the milliseconds. And since we're inside of that time run in seconds live data, that it will also be in seconds. So we need to multiply that with 1000. And as a second parameter, you can see we have that include millis, whether we want to include milliseconds on that formatted time or not. And that is initially set to false, so we don't need to specify it here because we don't want to display the milliseconds in our notification. And then we can just use our notification manager again and call .notify on that with our notification ID and our notification .build. And finally, we shouldn't also forget to call our just created function, that update notification tracking state function. And we want to call that whenever our tracking state changes. And since we have our is tracking live data here, which we already observe, we can also call our update notification tracking state with it here. And that is already it. So just as a little quick recap, first of all, in this video, we created our service module, which is a module that provides our dependencies for our tracking service, so only as long as our service lives. And here we have our fused location provider client, which we get from that service module, our main activity pending intent, which our notification builder needs so that our main activity opens when we click on that notification. Then inside of our tracking service class, we created that update notification tracking state function, which will update the action of our current notification. So when this is tracking state changes, then this function will also be called, and it will basically swap out the pause with the resume, or the other way around. Then we needed that strange block of code here to remove all actions that are currently in the notification. Oh, and I just saw that must be M actions with an S. So we refer to multiple actions here, and that's also why we have that array list here. We are going to set that to an empty array list, so we clear all actions, and then we just create our new notification, add that action to that notification, and call notify, so we basically update the notification. And then we had our is start foreground service function, in which we observed on that time run in seconds live data, because that is always called when a whole second passes, not when 50 milliseconds passes as the time in millis live data. That is just better for notifications because we shouldn't update them too often, otherwise some updates might be lost if you read the documentation regarding that. And yeah, that's basically it. Let's run our app and try out if everything is working. So there we go. Let's click on continue here. Start a new run, and if you now click on start, you can see everything is working fine. And if we take a look at our notification, the time is actually tracking. And also, if we minimize the app, of course, it will still be updated. We can pause this, the service here. If we click on pause, you can see the time is stopping. And also, if we click on that notification, then this time stopped and the UI updated accordingly. We can resume it here, and it will also resume in the notification, as you can see. So everything is working perfectly fine. And of course, currently you don't see any map here because I haven't set my API key in the strings XML file because for Git and stuff. But if I would set that, then you would also see a map here, of course. So if you set up your API key accordingly, then you will see a map if you try it out right now. And yeah, I hope this video helped you to understand, on the one hand, that service component with Dagger Hilt, and on the other hand, how to update a notification also from the background. That is pretty useful. And yeah, have a good day. See you in the next video. Bye bye.